Okay, so that takes care of our standard pancake, but what about those Japanese souffle pancakes? For that, we're going to need 2 large eggs, some milk, sugar, vanilla extract, a little bit of salt, and cake flour. Now, in this case, we want to use cake flour because it has less gluten in it, and we want these to be as fluffy as possible. So, cake flour is going to be our flour of choice to make these. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do to make a Japanese souffle pancake is we're going to want to take our eggs and separate the whites from the yolks. This can be a little bit tricky, but it'll be easier with fresh eggs. So first we're going to crack this egg open. I like to use a flat surface because I think the edge of the bowl can make some little fragments of shell that are hard to get out. So give that a good crack. Pull apart into 2 halves. And this is sort of the classic way to do this, is let the egg white run down, and then you pass the yolk into the other between the 2 shells and sort of filter out the egg white a little bit with each pass. And in our case, we don't need to isolate the yolk so much as we just want all of the whites by themselves. So we want to get as much white as we can, but if there's a little bit of white left in with the yolk, it's not going to mess anything up for us today. And that looks pretty good. There we've got our egg yolk. But if that's a little difficult, something else you can do is crack your egg over a slotted spoon. Oops. And you can also use your hand for this. It might give you a little bit more control. You're definitely going to get egg all over your fingers. And then just gently rock that back and forth until the white drains out through the slots. And you've got a pretty dry, or pretty separated egg yolk. Always wash your hands after you've been handling raw eggs. Okay, so once you've washed your hands and you've got your eggs separated, we're going to take the egg whites and we're going to throw these in the freezer just for about 15 minutes so that they firm up a little bit, which is going to help with the next step for these guys. While you're waiting for your egg whites to firm up, you can get out a non-stick skillet. 12-inch would probably be best if you wanted to make this entire batch at once. I think mine's a little bit small. And for this recipe, it's helpful if you've got a lid that goes up with the skillet. And start heating that over medium-low to low heat. While we're waiting for our egg whites to firm up in the freezer, we can also measure out the rest of our ingredients. For this recipe, I'm going to be measuring by weight using my electric kitchen scale. This helps because weight measurements tend to be a little bit more precise. Which is great when you've got something a little bit finicky like souffle pancakes. But if not, I can also give the volume measurements as well if you don't have an electric scale handy. So how this is going to work is we've got this button here that says tare, and we can use that to get rid of the weight of whatever container we put on. So I'm going to start by measuring out some milk. I only need about 1.5 tablespoons, so I think this little ramekin will work. That weighs, we're going to switch to grams. It weighs 116 grams, but if I hit tare, it will reset the counter to 0 grams. And I can pour in my milk. I'm looking for 22 grams or 1.5 tablespoons. So, oops, a little bit too much there. It's often helpful to 22. So it's often helpful to measure into a container that you're not going to be using for your final mixing, so that if you do put a little extra in, it's easier to get it back out. We also need a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Oops, spilled a little in there. And we can go ahead and add that to our egg yolks and give that a quick whisking until it's nice and frothy and thick. You can see we're getting nice and frothy here. And now we can start to add our dry ingredients. Now for our dry ingredients, we're going to want about 30 grams of cake flour. We've got our cake flour here, and I'm going to tear out the weight of this bowl. And 30 grams should be about 1/4 of a cup. If you're measuring by volume, that's 12 grams, 28, okay, almost there. 29. And there, 30. Okay, so for this next bit, we're going to transfer the wet ingredients. Oh, oops, we're also going to want to add our baking powder as well before we do that. So we're going to take a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder as well. Some of these don't measure so well as weights. And we're going to mix that in there, give that a quick stir, just to incorporate the baking powder. And we're going to want to, for our next step, we're going to want to have our egg mixture in a slightly bigger bowl than this. And for our next bit, we're going to want to sift the ingredients. Now, if you have a sifter like this, you can use this to sift the dry ingredients in. You can also just put them in a mesh sieve and tap it, and you'll get basically the same results. So we'll go for the more low-tech one. Just getting all our dry ingredients in. Okay, and now with everything sifted together, we can whisk to combine. Again, with like our other pancakes, we don't want to overmix this. We just want to get it all combined together. So some lumps and whatnot will be okay. Alright, that's looking good. Now we can set this aside until we're ready with our eggs. Alright, so now that our egg whites have been chilling out in the freezer for about 15 minutes and they're nice and cold, we can go ahead and add these to the bowl of a stand mixer. You can also use a electric or crank hand mixer, but if you've got one, you could probably try to do this with a whisk too, but it's going to be pretty tricky because we're making basically a meringue here. We want to make sure that our bowl is secure. add the whisk attachment to our stand mixer. Always make sure this is locked before you start running it. And start it going. You want to get it up to about medium. So as our eggs start to get frothy here, we can add in 2 tablespoons or 25 grams of granulated sugar, a little bit at a time while still whisking. Maybe go about a third at a time. Just gonna make sure that all the sugar is getting in there. Okay, so we're basically beating a bunch of air into these egg whites, and we're looking for them to start to hold their shape. So now we're at what you'd call a soft, more of a soft peak stage. You see that the peak that was formed when we pulled the whisk out fell over. So we've got just a little bit further we want to take this. But if you don't want to go too far when you're whipping eggs because it can break and you'll end up with a bunch of water and some foam, which is not what you want. Alright, so now we've got pretty firm peaks here. If you can see, these aren't even folding over really on the whisk here, which is as far as we can take this without starting to ruin it a little bit. So that's actually maybe even a hair further than we really needed for this recipe, but should work pretty well. So see what you can do to get all of that egg and sugar mixture off of your whisk. And now from this point, what we've done is we put a bunch of air into these egg whites, and that's going to be where we get most of the fluffiness of these pancakes. There's a little bit of baking powder in them as well. From now on, we want to be very gentle with these so we don't accidentally knock any of the air out of them. Alright, so now we want to merge our egg whites with the rest of our ingredients. So we're going to take about a third to start. Call that about a third. And we're going to incorporate these with the whisk. And at this stage, it doesn't matter too much if we get rid of some of the air bubbles from our egg whites. We're just trying to get this sort of mixed together and lighten up this egg white mixture, the yolk mixture here. So go ahead until you've gotten rid of most of the streaks. Once everything seems like it's incorporated, take another third, half of your remaining amount of egg white, and add it. And this is the step where we want to start being careful about deflating. So you can fold these in by just taking your spatula and going down and folding the mixture over. from the bottom, trying to deflate as few of these bubbles as possible, but still mix things together. And you can use a whisk very gently with like a back and forth motion for this step as well. But be patient and keep going. And once that's starting to look incorporated, take the last of your egg white and repeat the same process. Up from the bottom and folding on top. All right, and we're ready to start cooking these. All right, so we've got our pan that has been preheating, and we're gonna just, even though this is a nonstick pan, we're gonna grease it down with just a little bit of oil, a neutral oil like vegetable or corn oil. And make sure that's evenly coated without any spots of oil. And now we can, we're also going to want to have some water handy. So starting with a spoon, we're going to take a couple of tablespoons worth of batter and dollop it down. We're going to want to add 2 scoops to each of these, although my first one was kind of in 2. And we're going to take a second one, start that. This might be easier with a ladle than with a wooden spoon. And we're going to do 2 to stack it high like this. And we should be able to make about 3 of these with our amount of batter. We're going to make another one here. Stack that high. I want to give these guys a little bit of room to spread out. So we want to do 2 to 3 scoops per. I think this is about the right size. We've got enough batter left to do probably 1 more scoop for each of these, which is about where we want it. So we're going to want to set a timer for 6 minutes, and then we're going to take a little bit of water and we're just going to spread it down in here in the empty spaces around these pancakes to create some steam, and cover with the lid. Now the timing might be a little different, so if you have a glass lid, so much the better, but it helps to double check on these. After about 2 minutes have gone by, we can go ahead and double check on these and stack another scoop on top. So we're going to let this go for 2 minutes. All right, so it's been about 2 minutes, so we're gonna unlid this. As you can see, our pancakes are spreading out a bit, which is what we expected, but they're still retaining a lot of their height. We still have some water in there making some nice steam, so we're gonna go ahead and add another final scoop to the top of each of these. Remembering we want to go high, not wide. Gravity will spread these out a little bit for us. And since if we were running out of water, we could add a little more water now. But since we look like we're okay for water, I'm just going to go ahead and recover and let this go the rest of the 6 to 7 minutes. All right, so my 6 minutes are up. So I'm going to take off the lid again. And I'm going to see if I can flip these. Now, flipping these is real tricky. An offset spatula or a silicone spatula are probably your best bets here. So you want to do is you want to try and get under and see if it feels like it's ready to come up or not. If it feels stuck, let it cook a little longer. Yep, so this one's coming apart a little and I try to move it, so that's going to need a little longer. And this one I think will too. So I'm going to give these another minute covered and come back to them in just a sec. Okay, so I've given these a little bit longer, and as you can see, they sort of run together a little bit. I'm going to see if they're ready to flip now. So you want to very gently coax them up, and then you don't want to flip so much as just roll them over. Get underneath there, get it to let go, and just roll it right over. And same thing here. Roll it over. That one might deflate a little bit from that. And now we want to let these add a little more water to them, and we want to let them finish cooking 4 to 5 minutes on the other side with the lid on. All right, it's been 4 minutes now. We can take the lid off of our pancakes and see how they're looking on the other side. They seem a little stuck, so we're going to give them another minute to get that nice brown color we like. All right, so I gave these a couple of extra minutes to see if they would brown up a little more, and let's take a look at them. They release nicely because they've been cooked through. A little on the pale side, perhaps still, but doing pretty well. And we've got our big, fluffy soufflé pancakes. Whoops. So that's how to make soufflé pancakes, but I know you're probably wondering, what are they like to eat? Well, with a little bit of powdered sugar here, I will show you. Like a little powdered sugar and hint of whipped cream. These would go really nice with some fresh berries, probably too. Oh, it's the middle of winter, so good luck with that. So when we cut into these, see, they've got a very spongy, cakey interior. Oops. They're very tender, they're a little sweet, and add that little taste of vanilla to them. So I hope you guys try these out for yourselves sometime when you're feeling adventurous, and the rest of the time, regular American pancakes will do you great. So there you have it, 2 great ways to make pancakes. One nice and straightforward, one a little bit more complicated and showy. Big thank you to Madame HJSRHS, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing, for requesting an episode on souffle pancakes. They're a lot of fun and they taste great. A little bit tricky, but I'm still working on my technique for them. So yeah, if you have a recipe or a dish you'd like to see us do on this program, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll see what I can do. Other than that, until next time, I've been Mr. Ben from the Merrimack Public Library. Bye.